Oh, there we go. We are live. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, Beast. Thanks for joining us again.
Thank you very much, Simon. It's good to be back. I think this is the second one of many more to come. So we've got this one's on data products, but if you have any more that you'd like to think about for other AMAs, please pop them in the chats, in the comments, and we'll pop it on the list of things to do.
Beautiful. So yes, that is what we're doing. So we are picking a different topic each time. We're kind of just having a little bit of a chat to tee the topic up and have a little bit of a noodle around on it for a bit, and then opening up to your questions. So if you start getting questions in now, pile them all up, and then as soon as we've done just going through a little bit of scene setting, we'll start picking those questions, talking it through, sharing what we have done. So again, today is data products, which again is a bit of a big, giant, vague term that kind of some people mark it one way, other people think it means a different thing. Some people think it means gigantic, gargantuan operating model. Other people it's just a new badge on an old thing. So yeah, just having a chat about all of these things and seeing what you think is the plan. So as always, we're going to set a bit of context. So East, would you like to bring in your beautifully crafted slides?
Please bring them to the stage, Simon.
Oh yeah, I need to do it. All right. Fine, I'll do the work. Okay, there we go.
Thank you. All right, then. Okay, so let's just start by just trying to define what is a data product. It's effectively, it has a customer. It's got outcomes in mind. So we want it to try and be as reusable, reliable, and valuable as possible. With this, data is very much the focus. So it has like defined ownership, might have some SLAs around it. It will have a support and lifecycle management. So if we're thinking like old school stuff, it's like curated data sets, semantic layers, documentation with a clear intended use, and delivered like software. But this is kind of like going like, this is everything, right? This is the full blown, this is like what we want to do with data products. Data products, like historically, has kind of like blended from like from mesh as it's evolved, and it's like quite a mature thing. But if we kind of just go like, actually, it's a product, but it's meant with data, then that's kind of like simplifying things.
Now I'm gonna add a little bit of my spicy hot take flavor to it. In that there's a lot of argument in industry about what classifies as a product, which thing is actually a product. Is it this table of data? Is it this report? Is it a particular page in a report in a massive kind of set of suite of dashboards? Is it an AI model? And there's lots of debate. And honestly, the reason why there's lots of debate is because it got picked up by so many different vendors going, oh, my thing's a product. My thing's a product too. Because of course, when the industry finds something that's new and exciting and kind of captures people's imagination as useful, everyone kind of wants to angle their things to it. So I guess we have a very particular definition of what we call a product, which not every single definition out there agrees, but essentially for us, mostly it's a data model. It is a data model crafted for a specific purpose with measured use, with measured output, with a little bit of like production grade wrappings around it. But that's what we tend to refer to, at least as an analytical data product, not just a straight data product. So there are other definitions. People talk about it as the reports or the AI model, or even, you have data products that are the outputs from your source applications. Yeah. I think for most of what we're talking about today, we're talking about an analytical data product, a product you have released for an analytical purpose that might have reports and Genie chatbot things and various things stuck off it. But it's about how do you craft a good data model that answers a business problem and then make it good? Tends to be how we think, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so what was old is now new, and what's new is now old. The topsy-turvy world of data.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So why bother adopting data products? Ultimately, you get a load of benefits. So accelerating how you get to actionable data. So if we're thinking about like the pitfalls of where we've kind of come from in the data world, putting things out through the mill has typically been quite slow. By adopting the product mindset, we're able to just live things quickly. we're able to be more iterative with things, so we're able to enhance things over time, leading more to improved decision making, particularly when the focus is about outcome. If the outcome is that actually I want to be able to grow revenue by 5%, then I need a product behind that which is going to help drive that. And then there's like the other bits that come with products. So being able to scale more effectively across teams. Maybe you've got some regulatory compliance that you need to do, bundling that up as a product kind of helps things. But also, because we are then treating things more with respect, we're able to innovate more. We're able to accelerate back to markets a lot quicker than perhaps we would be able to normally. So
it's entirely what happened to the world of app dev, right? So they used to just build things, and then you had gigantic, massive waterfall kind of things to figure out what you should build. And in the move to agile, they were like, no, we'll do features, and the team will figure out what they're doing. And eventually, they realized the team just didn't have enough time spent with the business, prioritizing things, deciding what should happen. A truly agile product has someone essentially laying field defense, going and talking to the business and working out what features are important, what's the minimum level of service needed, what happens if it goes down. All of that feature prioritization, all the massive industry that is product management, never really had its kind of gaze turned onto the world of data product. People have done it before. People have, a long time before Mesh, people had the idea of trying to figure out data as a product, but it just didn't really have the same attention. People hadn't really managed to get it right. You had this idea of a data owner in which you'd, smack someone over the head if the data quality wasn't good, but getting someone to actually take ownership of it and go, no, I'm delivering value from this thing. I'm championing this thing. I'm convincing the rest of my business unit to use it. Like all the good things that a product manager does with essentially your customers, like the whole, if you're making a product, just you're trying to market that to the rest of the world, like having someone take that role in data is, just different, but has the same benefits, the same reasons why people did it.
Yeah. So by adopting products, we're very much moving away from how we've traditionally done things. So moving away from outputs to outcomes, moving away from projects to products, moving away from ad hoc requests through to accountable decisions and ownership of that data. But also moving away from things like dashboards to decisions. It doesn't really matter how you make decisions as long as those decisions are being made. And under all of this, we should be enabling things like self-service, agility within the business, as well as trust within the data. But what makes a good product? So stepping back from data, but just focusing on what makes a good product. Ultimately, it's something that people want to use. Like they have, so if you think about like what you go into a supermarket to buy or get to the shops to buy, you want to buy that. You either have a need for it or a desire for it. It's usable. You know how to use it. You don't have a super complex instruction manual to figure out how it works. Maybe find fun in doing that, but most people don't. It needs to be intuitive to figure out how to use it. It needs to be feasible. So technologies that you might have need to be able to build on a product, as well as the skills that you have to build it, plus also to maintain it and keep on enhancing it. But ultimately, it also needs to be viable. So it can't break any standards that you might have. So they might have budget constraints. There might be legal or ethical or reputational risks at play. So these things all really make up a good product.
And I guess like, so much of that is, and it sounds stupid. And it sounds really, really kind of like, why didn't we think of this earlier? But like when you put out a really, really good data model, and when you put out kind of the best Kimball style star schema known to man, there's so many like teams and people and organizations that we've spoken to over time that didn't really do the valuable kind of thing. They didn't really go, what's the point? Because often because data teams tend to be seen as a cost center. They tend to be providing a service to the rest of the business. They don't make money. Their teams don't make money for the business. They just sit there and build things that the business asks them to. And you get into this mindset that you're not really asking how much money you can make from it. You're not asking, does it save me money? Is it regulatory? You're not asking, what is the value of this thing? It's more which of my various stakeholders is shouting the loudest, and therefore which thing am I going to deliver? And like, they're trying to turn it on its head and going, look, we are going to go out and we're going to find things that will actually drive incremental increase in revenue. We're going to go and find ways to cut costs. We're going to design something that actually is designed with the users in mind that they want to use, as opposed to they're forced to use it to do their job. And it's just that slight difference of thinking going, I'm going to design something for the people using it, as opposed to fulfill a service request because someone's asked for that thing and we don't have a data set, therefore I'll go through the motions and build a data set for them. It's just a switch of who we're building it for and how we think about building it, which shouldn't be rocket science. It shouldn't be this brand new revolutionary thing, but the sad fact is it's a fairly controversial idea in data to go build something people want to use. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Speaking of rockets, there's lots of animation in this one, Simon. So
yeah, this is my fault. I mean, essentially, when you build a product, like you don't just kind of, okay, we've got this amazing new app that's going to revolutionize everyone's lives. We'll just quietly put it live and not tell anyone about it. That's not how you launch a product. And that's not how you make money. And it's kind of the same with going through this process of actually designing a data model, designing like an analytical data product. You know, yes, there's an upfront design where you speak to the users, you figure out what they want, you figure out what they really don't want, you design it according to that. And as early as possible, you get it in front of them and you get them interacting it and socializing it. A little beta testing focus group. You do some innovation, you do some iterations, you find other use cases for it, you drive more value going, what else could we do with the same thing? But then most importantly, and the thing that we see missing from so many like data teams is launching it to the business. And there's a few things in there. Like having someone very senior and very visible stand up to the business and go, I'm going to inspire you about how you can use this thing. Because you could do a big song and dance and say, hey, there's a new data model, and people will yawn at you. And the whole thing is like, just not when when you first see a data model, unless you're a massive data nerd like us, you go, all right, what's it to me? And there's this whole piece of like that internal data storytelling. It's the whole piece of having this like senior representative. Remember the senior leadership team standing up and going, hey, look, imagine I've got this problem. And goes, oh, wow, I've got that problem. I've got problems. Maybe I should pay attention. What I can do is, how do I understand it? I can go there. Oh, actually, why is that like that? Oh, I can answer that question, dig in, go, well, what action would I take to try and fix that? Take down to the next slide. See, oh, okay, actually, I can resolve that. Let's see how I do that. Oh, there's some steps. You tell a narrative about someone having a problem, working with this new data product that you're launching to solve it, and capture people's imagination going, oh, so that's what I can, they're the kind of questions I can answer with that. That's the kind of value I can get as a person in this business from it. And you get two things. You'll either get one, potential users, people to engage with it, now actually just having a little bit more imagination, a little bit of a taster about what they could get from this new thing. But also other people in other areas of the business going, I want to be that guy. I want to be stood there doing that for my business. I want all these people to be looking at me on stage going, oh, wow, they're saving me from. Maybe I'll see if I can champion a data product for my area. And it's just trying to inspire people with data, which I know people have been trying to do for a long time. But if we bothered to build this thing and we've checked that it's really valuable and we know they're going to get value from it, just that final step of do a sales pitch, do a launch, try and engender a bit of excitement, and then it's actually out in the world. And then people aren't just, they just one day log in and there's a new report there and they're like, okay, they're actually going, yeah, I want to use this thing. That is the biggest piece I find missing from how people think about this stuff. Actually, that's not the biggest piece. There's so many other pieces. There's a big piece that is missing from how people think about it.
Building the hype. It's
Build the hype. It's a product. You need to sell products. Do some marketing. That's basically it. Cool. I mean, I think at that point, we want to kind of just start. We've got like a bunch of other things we can dive into if people have questions around it. If we don't have any questions, there's other stuff we'll just keep talking about. But I think we'll pull that out. We'll have a look at some of the questions that we've got and then see how we go. Sound good? Yeah. All right, what do we have? So going back up the list of questions, we don't have enough questions, so please keep your questions in and we'll kind of keep digging through it. But yeah, we can dive into the first question that we had before we really properly even started is, so that's Zayed saying, I don't want to end up doing just pipelines in the background. As an engineer, I find that offensive, but that's okay. Not everyone wants to do lots of
I sympathize with these. I don't want to do pipelines either.
So is it possible to start as a data product manager working at the best of both worlds? And then a follow-up question saying, if so, what are the qualifications that could lead me to it? So kind of double-sided question there in terms of, one, how do you get started as a data product manager? And that's a tricky one, because the idea of a product manager for data is still tending to be emerging. I don't think you can like trundle off and do a degree in the art of data product management, because it is a fairly new role. It's kind of, people argue about what it contains. It should have an awareness of product management. And honestly, most of the ones we see actually doing it, they don't have that enough. Most of the people I've seen coming from that direction are coming from either a data governance or just a pure data background. So they've been building analytics models, they've been building dashboards, they've been working with the business to solve problems using data for a while. And they're kind of moving out of that and doing more business function-based stuff. And this is a role that people are transitioning to with that kind of background. What we probably need to see as this role matures and evolves is people actually coming at it from that actual product management, bringing product thinking into the matter, and then actually picking up some of the data skills and blending them together. Essentially, it's an awareness of analytical data models, an awareness of essentially the challenge and the strategy of how you solve problems with data, and a background of the fundamentals of product management. If you're ticking those 3 boxes off, and then all of the readings and things that's emerging over the past kind of 6 months, a year, then blending that together is kind of where you need to start.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that you need to be an expert in data to be a successful data product manager. Where I've seen it with customers is that the best product managers have come from like that software background. So they've got that product management experience, and then they're learning how to then apply those skills to data. So it's having that appreciation of, I've got these fundamentals, how can I take this to another domain entirely? So understanding like how data modeling works, don't need to know it in depth, but you do need to know the importance of it within the structure.
And I guess we can flesh it out in a little bit, but there's levels of how much of this whole thing you're adopting. We've spoken to companies who have whole data product management teams. There's a whole organizational structure around it, and there's a huge amount of operational models, like the science of how you're building out your data contracts, how you're measuring your data quality, and kind of the routine around it, the design of new data models. There's a lot you can do in it. I'm not saying you need that. Like I think kind of when we first started digging into it, and like, so, the whole fleshing out, what is the best way you can embrace data products?
Yeah,
like,
what's the most governed way of doing it? What's the enterprise-ready way of doing it?
It was the most convoluted and the most like sort of theoretically good and sound. But then some companies just don't need that. Don't need the overhead of having whole roles dedicated to it. And it's more a hat you can wear and some best practices and thinking you can adopt. It's not saying everyone has to do it this way. It's more a case of building out this toolbox of approaches and going, look, here's all the different things that you can think about. And if there's things that are useful for your org, right, pick it up, run with it. That'll help you out. Rather than saying you have to adopt every single facet of it, because there's a lot there. And it's, again, as seems to sound like that enterprise side of things, it's trying to prepare for mass industrialization of these things. If you're trying to pump out model after model to service a massive group operation, there's good scalable operating models. If you're in a fairly small company, you don't need to do all that.
No, but you do need to adopt the mindset of treating data as a product. So applying the good characteristics of what we've already defined as a product. Don't need the whole governance wrapper until you're starting to scale out.
So hopefully that helps. I mean, we haven't told you what credentials you need, but just areas that you can look into and start learning that will help you on the journey to getting there. But certainly if you are working in a data company currently, if you're in a data org inside a company and that they're not doing any of this stuff, just starting to champion it and look into how you can start put those things in, starting to build some of those basic practices in will kind of help you on that journey to shaping that as a career. So there's like ways you can just start off doing it if that role is informal, as opposed to, jump ship and go look for that role specifically. It's something you can slowly start to build in and then gather that experience from. All right. I mean, what questions that is entirely off topic, but it's about the trolling I was doing at the weekend around the death of data engineering. Didn't necessarily want to go into the data engineering world. But yeah, we're not going to dive too into this because it's off topic of what we're doing around data products. Maybe we'll do data intelligence engineering as another AMA in future. But certainly how data products line into it, we are going to see a change. We're assuming there's going to be a faster turnaround. Like as all these various things come in and mature, as the next 2 to 5 to 7 years change, we're going to see the speed of what it takes to just get some data and make it available and push it out vastly increase. Like your ability to do something kind of one-off, ad hoc, hey, grab me some data from here and pull that through is going to increase. But with that is the danger that you'll lose some of the good quality and the good practices that go into treating data like a product. If you do something that is inherently vibe coded, if you are using AI to generate all this stuff, you're using AI to generate your cleaning rules, and you're not then doing the due diligence of going, why are we cleaning this? What's it for? What am I trying to get this data ready for? Well, that's not treating something like a good, well-articulated, well-designed product. So weirdly, like the data product and the design stuff stays, even if the engineering gets faster and more automated, it doesn't actually necessarily change the data product journey, just speeds up how quickly you can get there.
Yeah, and you can use the likes of like generative AI to assist within like the design phase or the prototyping phase, because like particularly within the prototyping phase, you are throwing something together very quickly. Most of it will be like dummy data, made up data, and that data doesn't always exist within systems. So being able to have that data very quickly generated by something to then feed into your data product to just validate how it works, get it into the hands of users quickly and early so they can start that feedback loop. That's how we're currently using the likes of like LLMs to generate these dummy data sets already. But conversely, on the interface side, the likes of Genie is a conversational LLM which interfaces with a data product. So these things then come full circle as like start of the journey, end of the journey, in the middle of the journey as well.
Yeah, it's definitely that thing we're going to see like a load of change coming in. Like the idea of conversational analytics or generative BI. I haven't decided which term I like better. Gen BI, when it first came out, I was like, oh yeah, it's horrible. I hate it, which means it must be the right one. But conversational analytics is starting to grow on me. But yeah, as Issa was saying, it's about finding additional ways to get engagement. I've done loads recently with, so Databricks have Genie as their conversational analytics. In other tools on top of Power BI and Fabric, you've got data agents. There's a bunch of these things starting to appear saying, how can you use natural language with an LLM to ask questions and it'll just go and query your data and bring things back. Now, again, lots of people are going, that's a data product. We don't think that's a data product. We think that is a use case. That is a page on your application. It's a feature of your data product. It is not the product itself in terms of our definitions, but it's a really important one. If we talk about, I've ranted about this in the past, like dashboards are inherently boring, and I'm really sorry that like a well-designed dashboard.
You're going to create another scandal, Simon.
I'm going to upset everyone again. But like, if you read Stephen Few, you look at Edvard Turk, if you look at like some of the fathers of good informational dashboard design, the whole point of a good dashboard is to minimize the visual noise. You should be able to open like a good scorecard dashboard kind of thing. And then what's the Stephen Few? Is that the data per ink? It's the amount of noise you have on the screen should be at the absolute minimal compared to the amount of information that's conveyed. You should be able to open up this thing and go, oh, that's the thing I should react to. Now, that's great in terms of just being able to make real insightful decisions, know where to focus your attention to at a quick glance. But if you talk about trying to engage people and capture people's imagination and get them to interact with a product, yeah, it's kind of the antithesis of that. So you can have some like really sexy, sleek looking dashboards, but they're not necessarily that easy to read, and it becomes style over substance. There's been this back and forth over, do you design a dashboard that people like to look at? Do you design a dashboard that's good at this job? And there is a balance, there is a sweet spot, but it's for people who aren't necessarily data savvy, they're not kind of data folks. It's hard to get that balance. Whereas conversational analytics, something that you can speak to loads of execs who are like happy to use ChatGPT, completely tech phobic, but will happily ask ChatGPT their questions, who are just suddenly gelling with, they're asking questions of their data, and it has a personality and it has ways of answering questions, and it's built to interact with that style of person. It's just an extra hook to build engagement with your data product.
Yeah, it's like everything about like dashboards. Dashboards guide you on the story to find out the answer. Whereas something like conversational analytics, it's the, hey, tell me the answer, skip to the back of the book, and then work your way backwards. One of my team members last week described it as it's like fan fiction, because you're able to create your own narrative rather than having someone else tell you the story. Sort of arrive at the same point, but you have more agency in how you get there.
And I'm being corrected in the comments. Sorry, Johnny. Data per ink is indeed a Tuft theory, not a few. Sorry, you mean data viz theory from decades ago. Apologies. Alrighty, we've got some questions about Databricks Lakebase. Not going to dive into too much, except to take on this follow-up question. So Lakebase we can talk about kind of in a future thing. Lakebase, for clarity, is something that Databricks released, and they announced a couple of weeks ago after the purchase of a company called Neon. It's an OLTP. It's an operational data store they're looking at putting into Databricks, which is novel in its application of separation of storage and compute for OLTP, which is bizarre and cool and different. How does that relate to data products? Kind of comes into this question. So for analytics, build a data set and put it out. Operational use in apps, do you solve it differently? How do you go about thinking about that as a data product? Is it a separate data product, or you're something that's analytical versus something that's operational? How do you think about those two use cases?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't treat them that differently, other than how I'm going to be implementing it. Implementation is a different thing, but when it comes to actually how do I design it, it still needs to have the business and the use case at the forefront, still needs to be governed, still needs to be launched, but it's how they implement that is going to be a different approach, because I might not need to or want to go down the whole, I need to create a semantic model, or need to create a star schema for these things. Might want to just be like, actually, this is the definition of my customer. This is everything related to customer. This is my operational source for this, and build the approach around that. That can then be used by other teams, other product teams who want to be going like, actually, I need to know what that definition of customer is, pull it through. So we've got this reusability element of it, but the implementation of it behind the scenes is going to be different. But if we're then thinking about, actually, if I want to mix operational data and analytical data in the same product, can I do that? Yes, you can. If you want to bring up the slides, Simon, we got a nice interface slide. So a data product ultimately has multiple interfaces to meet users where they are. So it could be SQL, it could be a semantic model, which they might connect to through other means, Excel being one of them, which I've left off the list. But traditional elements like dashboards, reports, metrics, and newer ones like data-driven applications, we're starting to meld the boundaries between operational and analytical data, but also these chatbots, these conversational analytical tools, which then just bring a richness to how we interface with data.
I've said certainly in that one, semantic model would not necessarily be the right one if it's an operational data product. So it depends what you mean by an app. If it's people having analytics data, but actually they're going up and they're making quick decisions on the fly, and you've put it up behind an app, absolutely makes sense. If it's operational in that they're doing lots of singleton reads and writes, and they're kind of just updating one record and they're using it to actually just manage their data, you wouldn't put it through a semantic model. That would be a different, you'd design that data model that sits behind it differently. That might be a source for your analytical models. It's a slightly different thing. Had an interesting question come in from the side, from outside of the process, because there's just ping me directly rather than via the chat. But certainly an interesting one that we can kind of talk about from a, how do you define success for the adoption of a data product? More importantly, how do you measure it? Like number of report views doesn't quite seem right. So if you're trying to sell the success, you're trying to wave the flag and say, hey, look at everything I've done. Like what's a good measure of success for a data product?
Yeah, I mean, report views is a nice, easy way. It's a clean way which any tooling will provide you visibility to. But when it comes down to I guess when you're designing the product, you need to start thinking about what value it's going to bring and what value forecast you're going to be producing. So it might be a good opportunity to go back to slides. So we're thinking. So when we're designing, we're thinking also about this bit in the middle, our value forecasts. So this is really where we start designing and thinking about the ROI in which it's then going to have. ROI calculations for data don't really make too much sense because it's very much a transactional basis, whereas the value in which data can provide is not always economical. It's sometimes it's being able to free up resources so they can do more valuable work rather than like the mundane work. Or it could just be able to make decisions itself is valuable, but doesn't necessarily always have a tangible economic impact. So how we calculate this is different. Don't have a slide on that, but I do have a blog post on how to calculate it. I will go find it a little later and drop it in the feed.
Essentially, like anything you build, you should be setting some kind of what success looks like. It should be a success criteria for the data product that's delivered. So absolutely, if that's we think by doing this is going to drive a 1 point increase in customer retention, then you measure it. And you say, well, how much have we driven? Is there a monetary value we can put on that? There should always, in these things, be an engagement measurement. Now, report views is one, but it's that what you need to have an idea of what's good. Generally, unique users and returning users. It comes down to the recency frequency monitoring. It's like if someone's looking at it once and then not again until the next month, is that good or bad? Maybe it's a financial forecasting thing and they're only doing that on the start of the month, but they come back each and every month and they get a load of value from it. Maybe that's right. We desperately want that. Maybe it's something that we want people to be using day in, day out, and then looking at a monthly is not good enough. So kind of when you're in that design phase, you're like, well, this is the user base. We want this much adoption in the user base. We see it as successful if the user base uses it this many times and across this many different people. But also, here are the ROI metrics we're trying to drive from it. You should have that definition as part of the initial design. If you don't know what value you're getting from the data product, why are you building it? Unless you've been told to by an exec and you don't have a choice. But ideally...
Well, I still push back, I think.
Okay, can I go back to our questions list and have a run through? It's probably one of your favorites. I've got a load of people who love doing things in Excel. They don't want to move away from it, and they are very fulfilled spending their entire day doing it. Now, obviously, it's challenges here. If they're very happy doing that and they see no problem, it can be tricky to get someone to move. There has to be a driver. There has to be something they get from it, and that's either an uplift in functionality, or they can do more than they could previously, or they can do it faster than they could previously. It's always tricky if it's they just don't have to do as much anymore, because people see that as a threat to their jobs, right? If I spent my entire day looking after an Excel sheet, and then someone said, you can do that in 10 seconds now, I'd be very worried that they wouldn't need 10 of us anymore. So it's about showing them actually what they could do extra, how much more they could do, about reassurance and education. It's about saying, actually, you guys are going to learn some new skills from this that then will help you on your future career. It's finding the benefits, finding what's in it for them, and approaching it from that way.
Yeah. Or conversely, it's also like how they could potentially do things differently. Like Excel is limited by the fact that it's Excel, so you're going to be constrained by the application. But if we then start using a platform to help serve the data out, we can then start augmenting that data with other things, other other data sets, other tools, processes. So they can get actually a richer experience, be able to be more effective in their jobs by just moving away from Excel. And I say this as someone who likes Excel. I think it's the reason why it's still like the best BI tool, because it provides flexibility and it hooks up to semantic models. But there's risks if you just stay in Excel. It constrains you to what it wants you to do. So using the tooling appropriately will help anyone in their job. But also cultural change takes a long time. Like you can't just understanding where people are and bring them on that journey is not going to be a one and done at the end of the launch of a data product. It's a continual engagement, continually delivering high quality data products, getting the feedback from users, and improving their lives, impacting things in a positive way. But then there's other initiatives around the other bits to help drive that culture.
I mean, that was almost the best segue into the culture shift that's required for a company to think in data products. Yeah. Like how do you start? How do you start planting those seeds? What's the journey to going from we don't have data products, we just have data?
Yeah, it's to start small, because as I said, culture change takes a long time. So it's laying the foundations. Perhaps it's that I need to just prove that value can exist from data. And by just starting at that value mindset, you can start then adopting a wider product mindset, because that's one of the 4 pillars of what makes a good product. And then you can start building out. You don't have to go all the way to here's my fully governed all single dancing data products framework. It's that actually how can I just prove value to my customer base? And by proving value, you start getting buy-in, and that then has a multiplier effect. So you can do more because people see more and can do more with the data that you're providing them.
I definitely agree. I definitely think you need to fix your ability to deliver before you fix all the operate and run stuff around it. Because the biggest thing about data products is people actually seeing the output, the delivery, they're getting something from it. We tend to think about things there's two whole different sides of how you implement data products. There's the design piece of how do you talk to the business? Where do you come up with your requirements? How do you get to the point of going, there is a business problem, I've now got a data model, I've now built the data model, I've now pushed it out to the audience. Like that is whole one stream of like designing a good data product. And the other side is like, how do you operate and run a data product with you manage kind of how fresh is the data, what the uptime is, managing data quality, managing the data contracts that underpin the delivery of it. It's kind of like the support promise that you're giving to users and actually running with that on a long time, versus how do I put out something that is good quality and designed for the right people and is going to engender the right interaction. I think if you try and do we're going to run it properly, but actually you haven't designed it properly from the get-go, it's really hard to retrofit that stuff back in.
Yeah.
Whereas if you start with some of we've got a new use case, we've got a new semantic model we have to build. Let's actually step through the thinking about how we build this with the business first, deliver something that is good quality. You're kind of starting to tick some of the boxes about what's value look like, what's uptime look like, what's the minimum requirements. You kind of gather that, which is really hard to do that when you've got a big bunch of data products, semantic models that weren't built as a proper data product.
Yeah.
Kind of makes sense to start at one end, not the other end.
Yeah, start with value first. Like value should be the driver. And everything else will follow.
All right. Not sure this is correct, but there's no real mature resources to learn data product concepts and how to do it. If I'm wrong, please share the best resources. Now, there are a bunch of blogs, there's a bunch of books, there's a bunch of people are put out on the topic. Some are great, some are a little woolly, some are marketing fluff. That's the danger. It's not so much that there's not really anything out there, it's that there's this explosion of interest around it, and loads of people wrote a load of stuff, mostly with some kind of end goal, aspiration, and behind the scenes of it. So in the actual data mesh book that came out, there's actually a lot about actual good data product thinking, but it's so entangled with the thinking about how you build this completely decentralized kind of mesh architecture. But there's some great principles that were established in there. I have since seen there's the Data Products for Dummies book. There's a bunch of other books that I've got in there that have a huge amount of detail around there. But yeah, we can kind of share some things. I don't know if you've done a reading list for this in the past, East.
I haven't. We have some materials which I think we can probably share. There will be advanced analytics materials. For example, like when it comes to the design of data products, we have a framework called SunBeam. Part of this is, I'm going to say, like, not quite open source, but the principles and how to do this is freely available, mainly because it's built upon two freely available modeling concepts. So it'd be mean to go, actually, this is ours now. This is still everyone else's. So SunBeam is a design framework. So starting with the why, the purpose of what we're trying to achieve with data, before then drilling down into a data product canvas. So thinking about our customers, thinking about the business events that might underpin it, the value that a product will have, think about the interfaces people might want to interact with, and then also then designing the events themselves. And this is where then like the SunBeam aspect of it comes into play. So Sun modeling, as well as Beam, so business event analysis and modeling. So Mark Whithorn and Lawrence Core, two great people. Go and look them up. But we then follow that up with validating the entire thing by teasing out user questions from our customers or the customers of the data product, because this is what will help them answer the questions they have about how they see the business. And that can then feed into like KPI design, dashboard design, designs for your Genie rooms, how you design your data applications. All these things kind of like have a holistic view. But out at the end of it, you'll have a fully designed data product, but it's also not the end of the conversation. You'll have the design of enough to get started MVP, and then keep on iterating as new features, new requirements, new ways of doing things come online. So it's the start of it, not the end of it.
Alrighty. Gonna dance around the comments a little bit because there's kind of a good follow-up question that kind of makes sense. How do you have time to do this if you're already so absolutely rammed with BAU and ad hoc requests and everything is obviously always on fire? But you know that actually taking time and investing this stuff will actually save you time in the long run. And it's almost like the age-old, like any kind of tech problem has this kind of thing eventually going, well, how do you have time for DevOps automation if we're so busy actually building stuff and doing it? How do you have time to take a step back and go, surely there's a better way of doing this, but you don't have time to take don't have time to take a step back because we're all just so busy. Like, what's the best recommendation to like take stock, stop, and start on that journey if you don't have time to like really stop and take a step back?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. And there are varying degrees of success, and it depends on how comfortable you are to just anger people that are dealing with like the BAU stuff or requesting the BAU. Where we've helped our customers kind of take the step back is by trying to isolate a smaller team to focus on the data products. So BAU still being kept going, but there's a separate team being able to carve out the time to think about things, so that when you've got the first couple of products going, hopefully the BAU workload becomes lessened because people are going towards things that actually work for them rather than firing off ad hoc requests to be like, I need this, I need that, when the data product itself is going, actually, this meets my needs, or actually I can find out the answer now. So it's a cultural change thing. It doesn't happen overnight. The magic wand, as a consultancy, it's bring in some consultants, which isn't always the answer. But if you would like to think of us as to bring in, then we would appreciate it. But it's not necessarily the answer for everyone.
I mean, there's a few different levels there. Most of it is just being able to actually convey that message that without taking a stop, it's never going to get better. It's only actually going to get worse in that as you release more stuff, as you build more stuff, the BAU is going to get even bigger. And there's going to be this pressure to expand the data team without actually getting any more value from it just to keep the lights on. Now, realistically, that should be the leadership team. That should be whoever the exec sponsor, the kind of the downline is the data team, should be actually seeing that with a bit of foresight and going, look, this can't continue. We need to do a bit of investment, do a bit of pause, push back to the business and say, guys, you need to chill for a minute. We need to actually put some foundations back in, and then you'll get a better experience. And part of the whole data product stuff, I don't know, it's hard to use the data product stuff if you haven't had time to adopt it yet. But that relationship changes, because if you have someone who's a member of the business teams, actually who is taking ownership of that backlog and they're championing it and they're pushing it, actually having a representative of the business being the person who's working with the data team to then prioritize and deliver it, it means they understand what the dev cycle is. They see the pain, they see the capacity. They're involved in that, despite being having their feet on the business side of the fence. And that's kind of always been one of the data team's problems of it's, oh no, that's the data team. They're over there. We don't talk to them. Like having these people who are actually from the business teams, representatives of the business teams, actually part of that conversation really helps with the conversations going, guys, we need to slow down. Let's actually it's going to be later. And it's not just the data team going, it's going to be later because we're really busy. It's the person taking ownership of the delivery of that, communicating with their stakeholders. So it's a thing that will help, but I appreciate it's really hard if you don't have it in. And that just requires a leadership pushback to try and build a bit of space in for you. As Johnny's saying in the comments, you've got more time to do it right once than you do to do it twice, but you never know that up front. And that's a really hard message to convey to stakeholders. It's tricky. Dancing around, we're going to have to quick fire some questions because we're running out of time. If data product is part of broader development, including apps to create the data, does the term data product become an umbrella for a bit of everything? Ooh. That's why we're quite specific in our terminology. When we talk about data products to our clients, we talk about analytical data products to just try and ring fence it and go, we're talking about a semantic model. We're talking about a designed, curated data model designed for analytical purposes. Now, yes, you can say behind my operational database, there's a database that needs to be treated like a product and actually have respected things and have a data contract. Absolutely. But the way you go about doing it, the way you go about designing it, the way you guarantee into it are slightly different. There's almost a slightly different flavor of data products, depending on is it an operational data product, is it an analytical, is it something else that's in the ecosystem. Now, if you had one of those analytical data products and you put an app over it so people can interact with it and they can use it, that for us is just a window into that product. It's another feature that product has. Yeah, kind of where I sit.
I think if you kind of view data products from a lens of ownership, and you just shut it down to actually the ownership of a data product is who produces data. Therefore, you can kind of go, actually, yes, any system or any person that produces data is a data product owner, and what they've done is a data product, which kind of goes against our definition of it, but that's kind of viewing it from the lens of an ownership perspective. But yeah, as Simon says, like the app or the interface across the top of it is just how people interact with it.
All right, we need to move on in our quick fire. It's a spicy one. Do you see a way to automate data product creation from business use purely using LLMs? What steps are needed to make that happen? Now, no. I mean, absolutely, you can speed up the creation of data products. But the biggest challenge that we always have is actually articulating what business value the business wants, and like sort of actually then fleshing out and understanding that process. You can do things like process scraping, process mining. You can kind of shred things from various systems to understand what steps are technically gone through. It doesn't necessarily tell you what the business problem is, where the business value is, what the actual requirements are. I think to do that full end-to-end, like, can you magically just spin up 100 data products to cover the rest of your business? We're not there yet. But if you've spoken to the business, you've understood the requirements, you've done the people relationship requirement-y kind of thing to actually understand the problem they're trying to do. Can you use AI and LLMs in terms of that dev process to massively speed up how you deliver that stuff? Yeah, loads of opportunities to do that. But as a blank, can you completely automate it? No, because people are still people, and people still need to articulate themselves. People still need to be able to explain exactly what they need, which is almost impossible to get someone to do. You need that conversation, you need that process to actually work out what you're trying to build.
Yeah,
I mean,
and you can use LLMs to assist in the design of this, but you still need a human in the loop to be able to actually correct things to make sure that it's actually aligned to the reality of the business, or even like the reality of what data exists, or just to kind of check against those qualities of a product. Is it going to be usable? Is it going to be viable, valuable, feasible? And
I mean, you can use LLMs to take like a requirements document and suggest a schema for it. Would it be amazing? No, it'd need a bit of judging currently. You can use an LLM to say, here's my current cleaned data, here's my target kind of schema, suggest the business knowledge to map the one to do. Now, it takes a lot of fact to get a prompt that actually does that in an accurate, repeatable way that doesn't actually save you time. But these things are starting to appear. We'll be able to actually speed those things up, and actually the technical parts of it will get easier over time. It's not quite there yet, but we're starting to see these things appear that will speed that stuff up. But yeah, people are still people. People don't like explaining their problems to an AI bot that will then tell them what they need. It's a people problem.
Yeah.
All right, what else we got in this list? What documentation or artifacts from data engineers do you find the most valuable when designing data products? Oh, it's an interesting one.
That is an interesting one. Going back to like SunBeam stuff. So if you want to bring up the slides again, Simon. As part of like the SunBeam design frameworky bits, we'll have designed conceptually what the product will look like with end customers. But then we still need to know what actually is possible with the data that is available. So we have this data discovery bit. This is effectively a source to target mapping document. So as an artifact, that is critical. But also we'll end up creating like a bus matrix to be able to know like actually which tables do we need to create, which order can we create them in order to meet the minimum viable product definition. And then we can then flesh out the design. So engineers sometimes prefer to have like a logical database design to build towards. Not always needed, depends on like the situation and environment that you're in. But really what we want to be doing when we're moving from design into delivery is quickly and iteratively proving that we can actually just do stuff. So we're refining the design as we're going along. So we're not going like, this is your artifact, this is the truth. This is something to start with. We'll refine it as we go along. It will change as we progress through this, because we're moving towards requirements being agile in how we deliver things. So it's the delivering way, it's not waterfalls.
All right. I mean, it's an interesting one. A lot of times we almost find it the other way around, right? We find that the data product design passes artifacts to the data engineers about the things that they need to build into the contracts to actually make sure they're doing things properly. So it depends on how you've got the building things and where the ownership line kind of like switches over from this is the people designing the end product that actually give you the requirements to do all the pipeline bits. The requirements for your data product should drive your engineers, not necessarily vice versa, except when you're doing what data do I have that I can then map the thing I'm trying to build. But we are almost at time. I reckon we've got time for a sneaky additional one. What have we got in the list? All right. One thing I actually didn't see is that we had done a blog about how you use our LLMs to do that beam session. So definitely we'll put that in the comments. Go and check that out. There's a load of stuff in there. And this hairy question going, if you're going to do a load of stuff, no ML, no streaming, no advanced things, would you recommend Microsoft and Fabric or Databricks? And would you look at that? We are out of time for today's session. So we're going to have to put a pin in that one and come back to that, because that's not about data products. So off-topic things, trying to send us in the wrong direction. All right. Thank you for all the questions that we've had. Super happy about the number of actually sort of lovely, hairy, interesting questions we've had in the comments. As always, East, thanks for joining us this time.
Oh, thank you for having me. And as I mentioned at the beginning, if you have any ideas about what you want covered in future AMAs, pop it in the comments, pop it in the links, and we'll get around to it.
Beautiful. Okay, we'll be announcing the topic of the next one and getting that date lined up soon. And again, we'll get it live. We'll figure out if there's a way we can get you to submit questions in advance. But it's also just nice if you come along and have a bunch of questions and we'll have a talk about it. And then, yeah, until next time, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Cool. Thanks all.